Good afternoon, true crimers. Uh, that is really hard to watch. The Caleb Harris case, as many of you know, we've been watching it closely since his disappearance back in the first part of March. And I know for me personally, got very involved with the family, certainly talked to the family often. I heard from Randy yesterday, pretty close to when he found out. And it was really hard to hear the words because I think many of us were holding out for some positive news that the body found in that waste treatment plant was not Caleb Harris. Initial reports and initially, certainly the family felt it was quite likely not him for some reasons. There's a lot of homeless people. The clothing that was found separately was not recognized. I think there was real hope that Caleb was still alive somewhere. But that hope is gone. Caleb is gone. And he was found again. I want to mention how he was found. It's been about 3 weeks. And he was found by sewage treatment plant workers. I just can't imagine, in all seriousness, I can't imagine really a worse place for him to be found. I wanted to talk about that just a bit and bring up again for everybody who doesn't know exactly where he was found. So he was found again about 3 weeks ago. I want to make sure I'm very precise. At 3:31 p.m., after city water employees found human remains in the wastewater collection point. Now, this collection point is about 40 feet deep. It was full of wastewater. No, not water, wastewater. And these were remains that were not intact, remains that were so horribly decomposed, and I'm not going to get into detail, but so horribly decomposed that the sex nor an identification was able to be determined. They thought it was probably a male, but they weren't even able to tell that. So that's how badly decomposed this body was. Caleb's body. To get to the entirety of the body, to retrieve it, they had to completely drain this 40-foot pond, for lack of a better word, filled with wastewater. It's a lot of wastewater, 40 feet deep. The crews that removed Caleb's body were in full-on hazmat suits. Full-on hazmat suits to even be there to conduct this search and retrieval of his body. The remains that were found were sent for identification to be compared, the DNA of the body with the parents, Caleb's parents. And I want to say this. His parents are some of the strongest people. If you have not had a chance, and it's not because it's, on my platform, but the whole family got together. Sister, grandparents, uncle, parents, and talked about Caleb. Of course, at that time, they held out a lot of hope that he would be found alive. And I really was inspired, particularly by Caleb's mom, because her faith has really been what's gotten them through this. And her words that many of you might have seen, she said that she believes, of course, that her son is in heaven and is alongside Jesus Christ, their Savior. And that's what's given them, I think, the courage to go through this process with such grace and such honesty, if you can call it that in this type of a situation. So anyway, they are grieving. This is so hard for them. But I can tell you, they're angry too. They're angry because they believe, even though I want to make this crystal clear, the medical examiner said they cannot determine whether this is a homicide or what this is, because again, of the deterioration of Caleb's body. Now, they said there was no obvious signs. What does that mean? In other words, if you have a skull, as an example, and you have a bullet wound through it, like what happened with Brian Laundrie, that's an obvious sign of a homicide or a suicide, depending on how they can tell by where the bullet enters and exits, how close it is to the head and things like that. They can at least determine whether it's a suicide/homicide, as an example. But in this case, they could determine no obvious signs. But I believe as they pursue justice in this case, and they pursue a lot of the leads that were out there and a lot of the information they had, I think it's very possible, not 100% sure, but very possible that foul play is involved in this. And this is why I say this. This treatment facility, I'm going to give you the name of it, was buttoned down tight. No trespassing signs, fencing, locks. There was no way to get in this facility unless you had a way into the facility. In other words, unless you went through links to get into the facility, or you had the ability to go into the facility legally. The facility, I'm sorry, I was looking up this name for y'all, is the Greenwood Wastewater Treatment Plant, if you want to do any research on your own. The Greenwood Wastewater Treatment Plant. And I've done a little research on this. Certainly no wastewater treatment plant expert. I'm hoping we might have somebody in the chat that is, or somebody join us that is, but essentially this is sewage water, sewage refuse that goes to this facility. And there are actually barriers, kind of like grids, that remove hard objects, remove bulky or larger objects, so they don't actually go down into this particular 40-foot, where this sewage goes. And then that goes off into another location and is removed to a landfill. Harder objects, bigger objects, such as a body. So this gives me a lot of pause as to how this body got down in there. And mind you, this specific facility, which was literally about a driver away for those who play golf, just very close in the distance, maybe, I suppose, I guess you'd have to be a professional driver, but 400 yards maybe from what I saw. I guess it could be a half a mile from what I saw. It's just right in the near distance from Caleb Harris's apartment complex. So I think all of us certainly were concerned and thought this must be Caleb Harris. Like, the proximity was just too much to not put two and two together. But, we were given a lot of hope. In fact, authorities came out and said, and I'm going to read you what they said initially when the body was found. They said, I wanted to find that first article. They said that there is no evidence that these remains are in any way connected to the disappearance of Caleb Harris. I'm going to repeat that. They said there's no evidence at this time that these remains are in any way connected to the disappearance of Caleb Harris. And this is in large part what gave his family, I think, so much hope that it was one of the many homeless people that live in Corpus Christi that these remains belong to. That and the fact that the clothing was not recognized. Remember, the clothing was found separately, and these remnants were found in this area, horribly, horribly decomposed. How did he get there? Why was the body so decomposed and separated, if you will? Why was it unclothed? There's a lot of questions to be answered. I also wanted to read precisely what was done in this area in terms of searches early on. Early on, sorry, let me find this little piece of information. Early on, they said that they searched over and over and over again this area as well as this treatment facility. They said they used dogs, they used drones, they had individuals, they had people. This leads me to believe Caleb was not there after his disappearance and during these days and days, and really what ended up being weeks of searching. His father personally was involved in some of these searches and search parties. His father personally saw the manhole people talk about. Well, maybe he fell down this manhole. It doesn't make sense. He was very athletic. He played sports through high school. Everybody can see, he was, I think, around 6'2", if I recall correctly. He was a strapping, well-built young man. I've always said for him to be walking around barefoot in this field and step in this manhole, even if you stepped in it, they have, barriers so that if that were to happen to somebody, that they wouldn't just get sucked down into, this lines and couldn't get out. It would just literally take putting your arms up like this. think it's, I talked about this before. I was told specifically from somebody who was on the search that it was 24 inches, I believe, in diameter. If anybody finds out anything other than that, please let me know, but that's what I was told. So it makes no sense to me that all these searches were done and that treatment facility was looked at, that this 40-foot pond was searched and he wasn't there, and then now he is there. This tells me there was foul play involved. And the decomposition of his body, I mean, chemicals sitting in refuse, I mean, just like I said, a horrible situation for a body to be in. I am going to have on the show, and I'll get somebody on, I hope by Missing Monday, someone that can talk about specifically the decomposition of a body in these types of a situation. You know, I've got to get a hold of somebody that can answer these types of questions, and I will, because I want to understand. The Brian Laundrie case, that was easy because he was in a swamp in the heat, you know, alligators, critters, varmints. It made total sense to me that he was, you know, torn apart, eaten, and ended up being only a mandible left. That made sense. It was weeks, I think 5 weeks he was in that swamp. So that made sense to me. This has been months, but when did he really get put in there? And this is just my reflections from the evidence that I know. Right now, the police are saying the investigation is ongoing. And I hope that they release information they have that are clues as to who he might have met with and who might be responsible. Because I don't think the family is going to take this sitting down that he somehow jumped in a manhole that has these grades to prevent people from going down in it, and that somehow he was swept away into this sewage wastewater 40-foot holder. I wanted to read something else about this. Since they've been searching for Caleb, they've executed 50 search warrants for people, because I know some people might be thinking, well, what kind of investigation was really done? 50 search warrants, my friends, that is a lot of search warrants. And then you have to look at the returns of those search warrants. It takes so much time. I've always said that I think law enforcement did the best job they could with the situation involving the providers that they sent search warrants to, that in some took months, weeks, if not months, to give them returns. And by then that information's cold, and then you have to send out more because of the leads that you get from what you just got. So I think this is a case for people in the missing community and all of us at True Crimers that really care about helping find our missing. This is an area where we can help, and that is put pressure on these companies to get these warrants, the information returned to law enforcement so these cases can be investigated more timely. I mean, what if Caleb was alive for days or weeks, and because of all of this delay in figuring out what phones were pinging there in that area, with geofencing, what phones intersected with Caleb that they might not have told us about, separate from the Snapchat, information from apps, from social apps that might prove to have information about who Caleb might have intersected with. All of that, all of these search warrants that went out, I know for a fact were not, in many instances, returned timely. There were 82 preservation requests submitted, so sometimes there's information you can't get to right away or get the warrants right away because you're writing and you're working on all of this, but you can send out preservation letters to have information saved by different providers. It says 1,500 gigabytes of data. Now, obviously, that doesn't compare to what we're seeing in the Brian Koberger case, but it's a lot of data. It's a lot of data for a missing person case. I think they worked hard to try to find Caleb. I thought all that was important to bring forward. Also, all the different agencies. I mean, the Secret Service has been involved, the FBI, all the local authorities, Fish and Wildlife, helicopters, were lent to searchers. They did everything they could to find him, but yet not a sign of him until 3 weeks ago. Completely decomposed in a wastewater sewage area that's locked up tighter than a drum. I'm going to stay on this case. I'm going to get a wastewater treatment expert, and I don't know whether it'll be a pathologist or an ME. I'll find somebody to come forward and to give us some insight as to how quickly a body could decompose over this period of time, because I want to understand a timeline here. Was he alive for a long period of time and then put in there, 2 months ago? We know it was after the searches ended, which I was told was, as I recall, mid-April. So I think they searched for 6 weeks. I think the last one done there was in mid-April. I can't remember the exact date. I was told it was 16th or 14th, something right there, but let's just say mid-April. So we know it ended up being in there after mid-April. What happened in that time frame? I'm going to get to your questions now. There's a lot of unanswered questions. So I want to get to these. My mods, by the way, an amazing job by my head mod to put together that presentation, and my intern garnered a lot of those photos that were used, and the head mod put together that beautiful and touching music, beautiful video. We'll play it again at the end. I think it's worth playing again at the end because it was so good. In fact, I'd like to end the show on that after we finish up with questions. Do sewage treatment plants have security cameras? This is so interesting because I asked about that, and it seems like they don't. No one's been able to say there's any footage from that treatment plant. In fact, I'll go even further with that. A lot of the footage that should have been at this very nice apartment complex that Caleb lived at, a lot of those cameras were down or weren't working. I mean, the video, the fact that no ring cameras, if you look at the area we're looking at, as I said, I'm not exactly sure of how many yards it was, but I'm going to say from what I saw in the pictures, 400 to 800 yards away was this treatment plant. You could just sit there and look out your window and see it right there, like just across the way, across this field. So how no camera footage seems to be available is stunning to me in this case. And that's been one of the biggest problems with this case. But I'm going to find out that answer. I'm going to find that exact question or answer to that question. That was a great question. Exactly, Bella Italia. They do have, and next time we get back together, which is going to be on Missing Monday, I'm going to get photos of these manholes so you can see what they look like. There's ladders, and there's these, what's the word, rebar. The rebar that's typically in there, a grade, if you will, of rebar, because no one wants to be responsible for a dog, a cat, a human, somehow slipping in there and then ending up in this wastewater. But nevertheless, there's ways to get out of this wastewater. If somebody could swim, we know Caleb was an outdoorsman. We know that he was a hunter. We know he was a really good athlete. None of it makes sense that he would have gone in there alive in my opinion, from the limited information. I'm going to put an asterisk because as we learn more, that can change, just like in any investigation. As you learn more, your direction can change. You have to stay open-minded. But from what we know now, it's not making any sense that he just wandered in there or fell in there. From G. White, was it just said his body was unclothed? I did just say that. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions coming up here? Laura Quigley, hi. I saw a video where these units were built. It is not a great neighborhood, and 2 other people are missing from the area also, which gives me pause. So on my Twitter, which is for those of you who Twitter/X, I posted the missing men in and around this area that I thought were interesting that still have not been found. And I thought it was also interesting that one, again, the same approximate age, was found, and he had been missing for, I think, 2 months, but he was later found, which is unusual for that amount of time to go by. And my question is, where was he? And he went missing in a park that's in and around this area that I saw some communications about Caleb possibly going to. So I wondered if something might be going on in this park where these young men are lured, are attacked, or are somehow incapacitated, and something evil is done to them. So it is interesting. I believe it's 5 that went missing. Don't hold me to this. I wrote it all up on my Twitter, though. I gave their names for any investigation you guys want to do. I can also talk about that next time, and I'll have a board with all their names. Actually, I'll ask one of our mods if they could please do a presentation, a slide, if you will, that will have that, because I find that very important as well. Yes, I believe geofencing was used, and I believe that information was part of those 50 search warrants. I believe that, and I believe that a lot of information was returned late, but I believe there are credible leads that were followed, and I really hope that some of the information that was gleaned by law enforcement, I hope that they decide to get the public involved, because I think in this case, the public could be of great help if they're given possible names and faces. I'll say it that way. Top Cat 88, will all the workers at the treatment plant be interviewed as they had access to the plant? Absolutely. If they're not interviewed, they better be interviewed. And I just can't believe that the Corpus Christi Police Department, which is the lead on this, will not have interviewed them. Apparently, there was some video recording that was even taken, sadly, of Caleb by these workers, and that was released, and then it was pulled back. Is anyone in chat did anyone in chat see that? If you have, please, mods, if you could put those comments up on the screen. Because yes, they were interviewed, but I know what you're saying. All need to be interviewed that have ever worked there in the past several years and that working there now. The reason is, as it's a sewage treatment plant, some people could have kept their keys. Some people could understand how to get in and out. Some people could, have accesses that weren't pulled per se. I don't know if there's any electronic accesses you have to have, or it's just all key. But all of that will be looked into. I have quite a lot of confidence by law enforcement, and they're being assisted by the Texas Rangers. I was, honored to work cases with the Texas Rangers. They're an amazing group. They're paramilitary. They do a great job investigating, and I hope that they can pool resources. And I know they've been working on this hard, but I assure you that unless somebody completely drops the ball, which lately we saw with Secret Service, so people probably don't have that much conviction that things will be done correctly. But yes, they should interview, in my opinion, not just current workers, but people who worked there in the past. That's who I'd want to be talking to. Are there any other questions, Maud, that you think we should put up here to take a look at? Let's see, we have Bella Italia. The chemicals in the sewage plants are toxic. Well, yes, they are. And that's why I really need to get somebody on this program that is an expert when it comes to sewage treatment wastewater plants. We know there are chemicals used, and the reason I know how toxic they are is because they had to go in there with hazmat suits, and that was after it was drained. So now you're completely drained and you still have hazmat suits on because of the level of toxicity that could be airborne. So I need to get an expert on in that area because it's not my area of expertise, but we know that it was a toxic, horrible environment, and I would believe could have been why, at least in part, Caleb's body was so horribly decomposed. Emmy Nikolov, and I hope I pronounced that right. Has the autopsy been completed? Yes, the autopsy, I don't know about the toxicology. I should say, I'm not going to say autopsy. What I know has been completed is the DNA testing. The DNA testing of his body compared to the parents. That's what I know has been done. They've also, the ME did release that there were no obvious signs of a homicide, but they caveated that the body was badly decomposed. You know, that's the problem when you don't have, you don't have the entire body to work with. Super difficult to make a determination. So my understanding is it's undetermined at this point. Not, in other words, the manner is an accidental or suicidal or homicide. It's undetermined. Will that change? I don't know if it'll change, but it doesn't mean an investigation can't be done. It's understandable that it would be undetermined by a medical examiner, but let's look at all the circumstances. To me, the biggest one is, how did that body get in there? In other words, well, I'm not even going to say that because it's a hypothet. Let me wait until we have more information. Are there security guards at sewage plants? To my understanding, no. There at this sewage plant, I believe signage, major signage, no trespassing, large fences. I believe there's layered access. So even once you get into this fence, then there's another entry and then into the facility. So no, I don't believe there were any guards at this facility. To the best of my knowledge, based on the photos I've looked at and the information I've received, I don't believe so. True crime deduction. Always like that face he has. He's on Twitter and he's like this. I have seen the picture and the video. I am not aware he was unclothed though. Okay, true crime. I'm not sure what you're saying there. It sounds like you've seen the picture and the video. Was he intact, and was he clothed or was he unclothed? Because I understand that he was completely unrecognizable, even down to the sex, completely decomposed, and was probably in part because of that was unclothed. If you know something different, please let us know. Any other thoughts, questions that we can talk about or address? I feel like everybody's input is so important on these types of cases. This is a complete whodunit at this point, or it's some sort of a bizarre tragic accident where Caleb decided to go through those layers, somehow scale these fences, get in there, and sadly die sometime after mid-April. All right. Bushy eyebrows. Okay, been trying to ask when the service is and it's not showing up. Okay, I know it's going to be early next week. For those in Corpus Christi, I'm not sure how open it's going to be. I was just texting with Randy this morning about it. They are in the throes of putting together a beautiful service for Caleb. Again, they're very religious. So this sort of a service is, I would expect to be, in a sense, a celebration, because for believers, heaven is a much better place than earth. And certainly what he suffered on this earth, so it would seem, heaven is a beautiful place. And so I think it will be a celebration of his life. And again, their faith is as strong as anybody I've ever met. Oh, thank you, Serenity 72. And Serenity 72 says, I feel this proves anyone can be found, including Sebastian. Yes, rest in peace, Caleb, and prayers to family. It is somewhat rare, I think, for people to go missing forever. I always post on my Twitter, people found 30 years later, people found 10 years later, 2 years, 3 years, if not alive, deceased, but at least they are found. So I agree. A lot of it is taking parts of bodies that are found and doing genetic genealogy and DNA testing. But I agree with you. It gives us hope. And with Sebastian, I hold out hope. Say it again, because of the case of Connor Jack Oswald, who was again on the spectrum, who left as a teenager and who was found homeless about 2.5 years later. It can happen. And if we don't have hope, what do we have? So I'm hopeful for Sebastian to be found. Leo Sienna, beautiful name. So it's possible that he may have been unalived and then disposed of later in the waste treatment water. I think that is possible. As a law enforcement officer, as an investigator, you have to go in with every possibility on the table. Every possibility, even the one I just said that I don't necessarily believe, which is that he would have somehow scaled the fence and walked in past the no trespassing sign, somehow fell in, again, 6 weeks after he disappeared and was in that water. You have to at least consider that could be a possibility until it's not a possibility. So you start with everything on the board, and then you slowly whittle away and look at each thing until you disprove each as being near impossible. Oh, thank you, Forensic Intent. Forensic Intent, by the way, is another podcast. This podcast is led by a former officer, police officer, and psychologist. It's a great show. Listen, our channels, like Forensic Intent, my channel, we're not about drama. You're not going to come on here and see me, I don't know. You're just not going to see the drama. You're going to see facts. We're going to try to get down to the nitty gritty. We're going to take these facts and discuss them and digest them. I love everybody's input. 3 heads are better than 2, and 50 heads are certainly better than 1. So it's great to see everybody on here and to get your input. Rest in peace, Caleb. Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, I just hate to see, for those of you who have 20-year-olds, I have 20-year-olds, this case, it's Texas, I'm a Texan, just really gut-wrenching. Thinking about his life ahead of him and all he had to offer, it's just really sad. And I know, even though those parents have strong religious conviction, I know personally how hard it's been on them. And that's always hard to listen to and understand. Justice for Caleb, Yvonne Garza says. Yes, Yvonne. Again, right now, I think there has to be foul play afoot. So we'll see. I just don't know how he gets there without foul play afoot. So. Caitlin Martinez, hey guys, it's been a minute. Happy to be back, but wish it was for a better reason. Yes, I've been following Caleb's case since day one, and this one hurts. And that's where I'm right with you. From moment one, he was on Cuomo. I'm often on the Cuomo show, and Chris Cuomo was this case meant a lot to him. There's another case that Chris Cuomo very much follows. The case of Anna Knezevich that kind of started from the beginning and went through that case. And that case, it's hard to follow something from the very beginning, from the first day, and then get involved in it, especially personally. So terrible news. Just Jennifer. I have a 21-year-old son, and it breaks my heart for his family. Yeah, anyone on here that has a child this age, or that has a child at all, or that doesn't, that has a niece or a nephew, or as a sibling, you have, when you look at a child, it's like, I think what grabbed us about Gabby Petito, right? I mean, she's the future. She's everything. She was life. She was vibrant. And when you see these pictures of Caleb, he's just sunshine. He really is. He's just eating it all up. And so it's hard to watch that pass way too soon. Yvonne Garza, if the facility was closed and locked, I don't understand how he could have gone in there without access. I agree, but who could have gone in there without access? That's really the question. That's the question. How could he have gotten in there, and did he have help? Again, investigators are going to definitely have that on the table. I think they have some clues that they're working with. I think the fact it was searched in mid-April and he wasn't there, to me, is a big clue as an investigator. Where was he in those 6 weeks? All right, let's see. It's so worrisome that this is 2024, no security cams at the water treatment plant. I hope this changes and is mandated. Maybe one day a Caleb's law can be put in place for sewage plants. So beautiful. You know, I always try to look for some sort of golden lining. And again, I haven't verified it, why I believe there isn't camera footage is only based on information told to me about there was no camera footage regarding Caleb and his case in and around that was helpful in and around the complex or this area that they searched and looked for. You know, we're looking for him, and this is certainly within that area. But I'm going to get that confirmed or denied by Missing Monday. Missing Monday, we're going to go over a lot of this again, but I'm going to have more answers. NB girl. My child went to school with Caleb. He was such a bright light there. Thank you. Thank you, NB. You know, I think I've shared this before, but one of my closest tennis friends, who I've played tennis with for over a decade, her daughter dated Caleb's roommate and is still down there, graduated from Corpus Christi. And so she was one of the first ones to contact me about this case, actually, you know, on a personal level. And there's many who have children down there that are in Texas that knew Caleb, and they said he was just an awesome young man, just an awesome young man. Forensic Intent, bless you, Jen. Thank you so much. Anytime we can bring light and understanding and to these cases, I think it's really important, especially a case like this that I consider a true whodunit. Yes, Alexandra 85, a lot of hearts just saying, you know, we love you, Caleb. Oh, wow. Leo, she's been a member for 1 month. For anyone who's a member, thank you so much. We've put the membership rate down so low. I think it's like 99 cents a month or something like that. And the only reason we do that is because I have to pay editors and people we do long-term films. It'll take me at 99 cents a month about 20,000 people to become members for me to possibly catch up. I'm not complaining at all because this was a decision I made. But it helps pay for the editors. So thank you for everybody who has decided to be a member. I really appreciate it. Justice for Caleb from San Antonio. Yep, Texas is in the house. Alexander, 85. Thank you. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Oh, Ella Blue, new member. Thank you. Thanks a lot for being a member. We're going to continue to bring you fact-based shows. We have Missing Monday and True Crime Tuesday. You can always count on. And then we open up to the members a lot of the long-term features where I interview different FBI agents, psychologists, psychiatrists, people that are in the true crime community that are true professionals. I'm really excited about a couple we have coming up. One FBI agent that I interviewed that was, close to death when a cartel held him and a DEA agent up, and there was an informant in the back. Anyway, it's a very interesting story, and he tells it so well, and just about really the inner workings of the cartels down in Mexico. We've completed that quite a long time ago, but I'm hoping to get that one completed in terms of edited and out for you all to be able to watch and see. Chanel. Okay, this is somebody who loves good perfume. I have Chanel. I love it. Did they ever find his cell phone? Not to my knowledge. And I think that's very telling too. At least not that they've released. If they have found that cell phone, and if they haven't found it in that water treatment plant after they drained everything, another reason to believe he was put there, in my opinion. Ella Blue, always watching from Alberta, Canada. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much. I've only ever I went to Calgary, Canada on behalf of the FBI to publicly speak about terrorism, counterterrorism, and aviation. And I've never been to such a clean city. I felt like I could crawl on the ground and my feet and knees wouldn't, or hands and knees wouldn't even get dirty there. It's the cleanest city I've ever been to. It's absolutely beautiful. And I've been to Vancouver, which was also absolutely beautiful. So to all the Canadians out there, thanks for joining us. Mrs. Melissa became a YouTube member. Thank you, Mrs. Melissa. Love to have you. Thank you so very much. It just reeks of foul play. And this is from a fellow retired law enforcement officer. It reeks of it. As I always say, you have to keep your mind open to something else or to everything. I'm a huge believer in Occam's razor. Occam's razor just says basically the most likely direction of an investigation is the most probable one. Once you start getting into crazy conspiracies and A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H have to happen for one thing to happen, that's typically not what happened. Like I said, we'll be looking at this closely. I agree, and thank you for this live chat. Thank you. Brandy Beans, did they find his James Avery ring? Wow, what a great question. I don't know. I will ask Randy. Unless they feel like it's a important part of the investigation, then law enforcement isn't going to release that information. But I have not heard about that. And the reason I don't think they did is because they wouldn't have had to do DNA. They wouldn't have left the family. They wouldn't have gone out publicly and said, there's no way we think this is related to Caleb Harris's case, or that there's no information available to believe it's related. You understand what I'm saying? To me, they didn't see an immediate nexus, which makes me think no. Okay, wait a minute. Speedy Gonzalez, but they spell it really funny. Hey, Jennifer from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Wow. Thank you for joining from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Every time I think of Milwaukee, I think of, and I'm aging myself, Laverne and Shirley. Haas and Pfeffer Incorporated. I think they were in Milwaukee working at a brewery, but I've never been there. But every time I see Milwaukee, I think of Laverne and Shirley. I'm sorry, I'm old. B. Blanco, those looking for Gin on X, yes, thank you so much, at Coffindaffer FBI. And, it is really my main platform. Every morning I get on and I try to post about 3 to 5 things that I think are very important that are in the news. Sometimes it's about missing people. Sometimes it's about an ongoing case. I've posted a lot about this attempted assassination. I'm not making a political statement one way or the other, just to be clear. I mean, as you get to know me, those who are intersecting, you'll see that I'm about crime. I don't get into politics. I'll point out some things on politics specifically if it's crime related, but an attempted assassination is squarely in the purview of the FBI. And so I'm looking at this case specifically as to how the FBI, I believe, is looking at it and trying to find all these clues to put together. Obviously, we know who did it, but just making sure there was no conspiracy and really finding out everything we can about this lone wolf, because the more we find out about people like this, the more we can prevent it in the future. We could keep our eyes out for people acting and behaving in certain ways as indicators. The other reason is I served on the FBI Director's Protection Detail back in Washington, D.C. at the end of my career, and worked for Director Comey, and so was on these details, did advances, was on his inner circle, drove his limousine, which, by the way, that thing was a huge Suburban. It was completely armored and it weighed so much. It was so hard to stop and start. And anyway, it was a great assignment that I was blessed to get to be able to be on his personal protection detail. So that's another reason I've been really in the weeds on what happened with this assassination attempt. Yes, Laverne and Shirley, I know. Don't laugh. It was a great show. It made you laugh. That's how, it was a kickoff of Happy Days. Who didn't like Happy Days? I wasn't even a big television watcher, but man, I watched Happy Days, Beretta, Starsky and Hutch, and Laverne and Shirley. I would say those were my top 4 back in the day when I was little and young and loved that stuff. Okay, true crime deduction. I wonder if the boat storage behind the sewage plant has cameras. Such a great question, but this is the problem, true crime deduction. I always like where you're thinking. According to what we know, and what was even released and mentioned by law enforcement, just so little camera coverage in and around this area where he went missing, to include his complex. Some cameras weren't working. Other people's Ring camera was facing the wrong direction. There was so little camera coverage. So I think this would really be an epiphany if there was anything that law enforcement would be holding close, because we just haven't heard about that. And remember, it was searched for multiple times. We know that plant, in and around that plant, was searched. So I don't believe they had cameras, but I certainly want to make sure of that. And we'll get to that on Missing Monday. Lauren Presley, I'm from Mobile, Alabama, and I've been watching this case since May. It's so bittersweet to be able to hear this, and hopefully soon he will get his justice. Yes, I agree with you. I kind of paraphrased there because I lost track of my sentence, but yes, so she's been watching from early in May and wants justice. We all want justice, and I don't want to make the leap that this is a criminal case, or the leap that there's foul play, but that's what I'm seeing from what we know right now. Caitlin Martinez, do you believe the Reddit posts, comments, conversations are key to solving the case? So for those sleuths in the audience, there's a lot that's been asked, and a lot of YouTube channels have really focused on the Reddit account and account information. I think that law enforcement is aware of that account and related information, and I think that needs to be run aground. In other words, that has to be gone down and looked at to see if there's any nexus, because at the end of the day, Caleb Harris deserves justice. Keep in mind that he posted a snap of the tunnel underneath the road. Absolutely, for sure. There, he was on this little bridge and he posted that. But that tunnel would not have gone to the sewage treatment plant. But I'm not sure if you're thinking that that tunnel goes to the sewage treatment plant. Let me know what you think, Deduction. Hun Lover 3, thank you so much for the contribution. Justice for Caleb. Absolutely, justice for Caleb. The tunnel under the road is not connected to, and it doesn't end, but I don't believe that's connected to the sewage treatment plant at all. If I get information that changes that belief, I'll let you all know. But that, from the pictures I saw, and right when this case happened, this was interesting. So my former partner, we were FBI agents. We were what we call new agents, newbies. Everybody calls a new agent a first office agent, an FOA. And we were first office agents together, and we were on an organized crime run and gun squad. It was the best squad. And he lives in and around that area. And when this happened, I called him and I said, by chance, are you in Corpus? He's like, I am in Corpus, because he lives and works around that area. I said, oh my gosh, can you go to this apartment? He went directly to his apartment. This was this was the day he was reported missing. Took all these pictures for me of the apartment complex. I posted several of them on Twitter of the crew out there diving in that little canal area and bridge. I don't believe that's connected to the sewage treatment. I think sewage lines are connected to that sewage treatment area. If I'm proven wrong, or I just not proven wrong, but if I have a misunderstanding of that fact, I'll tell you all on Monday. Believe me, I know there's always information coming forward, but I don't believe what flowed underneath that little bridge has anything to do with that waste treatment plant. If anyone knows anything different, I think that's runoff water and rainwater runoff. But I don't think that there's any sewage in there that's going to that plant. If anybody finds anything else up, please bring that up. Surely the FBI is getting the cell data off the cloud from Caleb's cell provider via Cellebrite, whatever digital evidence off his phone. So I know this. I know that Secret Service actually came to the rescue in this regard. Secret Service has some amazing digital forensic capabilities. And in fact, they have something that either the FBI doesn't have or didn't have readily available when it came to this case. And I know the Secret Service helped in this regard. And I know the Bureau is also helping with the digital forensics. But I also know that phone, I believe, did not ping after in the area of 3 a.m. There's a timestamp at around, this from my memory, around 3:12 that I don't think they even think is legitimate. So unfortunately, they'll be able to go to the cloud. They'll be able to go to his apps. You saw what I read, 50 search warrants. So believe me, they are making headway. Guys, I'm just looking at the time. I know I have a conference call at 4 and it's 4:04. So I better get on this conference call. It's about a very, very interesting project on another extremely interesting case that you all know about. I'm hoping that this project moves forward. But I better give that producer a call. I want to thank you all. Mods, thank you. You always do a most fabulous job. Everybody who joined us here about Caleb, thank you so much. I know his family monitors this, appreciates all your beautiful comments. Please put the love out there for the Harris family. I know they will all be watching this after. And if we could play that beautiful video for those who came late and in the show there. And until next time, may justice be served for Caleb Harris.